Mm.
essentially I'm making more than I made, but it took me a lot of years. It wasn't about the work. I mean, you've got to just keep at it, be consistent, do the things you're doing. But it was the mindset stuff that was the hardest because I had to show up and I had to write people messages and say, "Hey, I'm a coach. Do you think you might need any services?" And to write those messages, to post, to get out in the world was extremely scary because my identity. It was the identity issue. And I'll be the first one to say when you're going through a process of saying, maybe I'll do something different, that identity issue will come up because not because your identity is better now, it's because it's just who you are. It's how everybody knows you. It's your social self. And so taking that time, it's not about making everything nice and comfortable. It's not going to be comfortable, but it is about getting out and noticing, okay, this is really uncomfortable for me. I have to write this email. I have to do this post. I have to, whatever it is. So that my advice for people who are thinking about change or whatever is, work on your mindset, obviously, like, coach yourself, but surround yourself with people who are in the space you're wanting to go into. Don't surround yourself with the people. I mean, if they're not going to be supportive of you, then I would say, consider whether they're really people you really want. I mean, sometimes you have to because they're
Yeah.
family or maybe, but I've had people who I'm like, I'm not going to hang out with this person. This person is all they want to talk to me about is my old self.
Yeah.
And so you kind of surround yourself with those people and then suddenly you're part of their group. And what happens is it brings you energy because we want to inspire ourselves about our new pathway, even if it's not for making money.
Welcome to your Wordless podcast, the space where we redefine success, self-worth, and transformation. I am Nick Yaras, the soul-centered architect of transformation, helping you unlock your highest potential and build a legacy beyond limits. Now, whether it is self-mastery, career breakthroughs, or wealth creation, this is where change begins. Now let's dive in. Could you first share with us what was it like growing up as a Danielle Droitsch?
Well, I grew up in the Washington, D.C. area, a daughter of two federal workers. And I was a very passionate, still am, very passionate, very emotional, sort of like felt the world sort of person. And so you would often find me like running around the neighborhood and like collecting for some sort of charity, volunteering my time. So basically, I was always a helper. And that was a little bit of an early signal to later in life. But because when you live in the Washington, D.C. area, there's this sort of pressure and push for achievement. So I kind of ended up, I was actually just talking to a high school friend yesterday about this, like this idea of like, oh, yes, we're all pushed. Like when you're there's always this vortex of pushing for the highest achievements. So I did end up going into the legal field and got a law degree and sort of pushed myself in that space. But we'll talk about it more, but the little helper that was running around the neighborhoods of Arlington, Virginia, was really sort of what I like to call my essential self.
It's funny how it all comes to, it's a full circle, right? The very thing that we suppress since we're kids is gonna surface when we're older. And if we're not aware, the universe is just gonna, sprinkle its dust, I don't know, yeah, that magical dust, and just either push it aside or shove it out of the way, either by, losing a job or maybe being diagnosed with something critical, things like that. What is your backstory with your career, former career, and then what made you take that leap into what you're doing now?
Yeah. So I discovered environmental sort of advocacy while I was in college. And so that is the space I've been in. And I'm actually still there for 30 years. So a long time. And right after college, I sort of started to pursue that. Like, how can we clean the water, clean the air, all of those. And that became my helper. But I very quickly was like, well, I have to go to law school to do that. It sort of pushed my sort of that achiever in me. And yes, lawyers do all the time do wonderful things for the environment. So it was like, it seemed perfect in many ways. And I still even practiced that space a little bit. But what happened was I spent 30 years, I worked for many, many organizations, local organizations. I worked for national and international organizations in the US and Canada. And so I've been very focused in both of those countries. But like I said, it's been 30 years. So in 2015, I sort of just hit a block. I just started to realize that I was no longer growing. And this may be true for some of your listeners, just this like feeling of not moving forward, feeling something's missing. Burnout is another one. But you just don't feel like you're like in the right place, but you're not sure what comes next. And that was me. I didn't know what to do. I wasn't like clear. And so a lot of what I do today is help people think about what it looks like for them the next step. But for myself, I did not know. And so then I hit that wall and I ended up going on this like big journey of volunteering and helping and exploring. And it's just a lot of different things I ended up doing. And of course, I ended up in the space of coaching and helping people think this through, but it wasn't without it's like, going down pathways that weren't quite right for me, etc. So, yeah, that's what happened.
So how did you navigate? Like, I want to zoom in when you felt this is not working out. I need to move away. So what did you do? Who did you turn to? And what were the reactions, especially from the people around I
Yeah.
mean, in your circle?
Yeah, and I know that a lot of people go through this. They don't necessarily share that they're going through it, but I certainly didn't share for a really long time. Like it probably for me it really didn't start in 2015. Probably in 2010, 5 years earlier. In the beginning, you're just like thinking about it a little bit and you start poking around and looking and you're like, well, maybe in my case, I was like, I'm working on water protection. So maybe if I just switched over to a different issue, it'll be more interesting. And I did that. And I did get a little bit more interesting for me. So I was like, okay, that's what I need to do. I need to switch the issue I work on. And sometimes in organizations, people will switch like roles. Like maybe I'm not in marketing anymore. Maybe I'll be in product development, whatever. But that's kind of what you do is you play around a little bit, you play and you but I was doing a lot of that and I just started to notice I was like the energy was really low. I was bored. I maybe even got irritated with very basic things, just not energized. And probably the biggest question in my mind at the time was like, is this it? Is this
Yeah.
my career? Like, oh, okay. Well, if this is it, this is not quite what I envisioned for myself. So anyway, so then I went on that journey and the journey was for me, it was very long because I didn't have any help. I didn't have any assistance. I didn't have any ideas. I just had to kind of figure it out myself. Like I was reading a lot. But I think when I started to align better, it was a couple things. So one would be like I tried different things out. I like volunteered to do things that I thought, oh, well, if I do that thing, maybe that'll be interesting. So I volunteered at a domestic violence shelter because I really care about women or men who are fleeing domestic violence. And so I worked in the shelter. I started to help families who were trying to immigrate and flee violence in other countries. So I worked with an Afghan family to help them resettle into the U.S. But I also did other things. Like I just started to just research and talk to people and ask questions. And it was frustrating because nothing was feeling quite right.
Mm-hmm.
But what ultimately happened is I allowed my intuition to start to carry me a little bit because I was trying to think it through. Do not cut. Well,
Yeah,
it's like the head and heart thing, right? So your head is
exactly.
like, I think that if I work with these people, I will feel better. If you're curious about something, it might be your intuition speaking. It may not be. We can be curious about everything, right? Just because you're curious about being an astronaut doesn't mean my intuition tells me I need to be an astronaut. But my curiosity was really piqued around this idea of coaching. And so I kept seeing stuff, things came across my inbox, and my brain just kept saying, what is that about? Because coaching, even this is now 10 years ago, or like was still nascent, and there's a million
Mm-hmm.
coaches out there who can call themselves coaches. So I was like a little skeptical too. Anyway, so I was, but curious. I was like, what is this whole thing? And the curiosity led to me signing up for a course. And I was like, I can do that, sign up for a course. Like there's nothing there, nothing that's going to get in the way.
Yeah, no harm, no
No
harm
harm.
done.
The
Yeah.
worst thing that happened is I took a course on coaching.
Yeah.
And then I got into the course and I found a good course. It's actually just for your listeners, Martha Beck. She's Oprah's life coach. So it wasn't
Ooh,
because she was
okay.
Oprah's life coach, but it was because her program was incredible. It's just like life changing. So even I went through the course and it changed my life and I didn't need anything else. I didn't even need to start a business. I just was like, this is great because you have to coach yourself and you have to do a lot of stuff in order to even think about coaching someone else.
Yeah.
Anyway, so
Yes.
that's
Oh, I
kind of
love it. We're gonna dive into that. The work that we need to do in ourselves before we start coaching others. Okay.
where we, yes,
Yes.
yes, yes. So anyway, but just ultimately that curiosity led me to the course, and then a light bulb, a total light bulb, right? It was just like when I coached someone else and we had to practice coaching, I was like alive.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like something within me that was like, oh my gosh, like I do this. And here's the interesting thing, going back to your earlier comment, you said, well, isn't it funny how we kind of go full circle?
Yeah.
So when I coach people, it wasn't like the first time in my life ever that I'd ever talked to somebody. It,
Right.
it was, yeah, I do this with my friends. Oh yeah, I do this with my family. Oh yeah, this is what I do all the time. But I never thought of it ever as a profession. It was just something I did. And then suddenly I was like, but that is who I am. That's who I am as a helper,
Mm-hmm.
someone who helps someone else just help them solve a problem, help them think through something, help them appreciate themselves, be more empathetic to themselves. I did that with my staff because I had a whole team at the organization that I worked at. My job was to manage them and make sure they did their job. But what I was really good at was making them feel appreciated.
Exactly. Oh my God. Yeah. I think we all coaches speak the same language. Are you stuck in a job that you don't love, feeling like you're meant for more? It is not in your head, it is in your soul. I am Nick Yaras and I help high achievers like you break free from burnout, rewire self-doubt, and build a life aligned with purpose through coaching, hypnotherapy, and soul activation. Because let's face it, real wealth isn't just about money, it is about aligned and happy heart, mind, and soul. Now, remember, you are worthy and you are enough. Let's transform your life together. Visit www.thenicknerasholisticlifestyle.com to begin.
Yeah. Yeah. So then it suddenly was like, I guess I shouldn't be a lawyer after all. That's not, I mean, sure, I'm good at it, but I wasn't extraordinary at it. And I certainly wasn't getting energy from it. And just because I had that
Oh, I
experience
love that.
doesn't mean that's what someone else. I coach hundreds of people, and their secret sauce, as I like to call it, is not necessarily coaching, but there's something there for them that lights them up. It may or may not be part of their profession. This is a really important point. Like it doesn't necessarily need to enter into your profession. Some people have their day jobs, but then their real passion and their sort of superpowers are deployed outside their job. That's okay. What we want to look at ourselves, and this is what Western society has kind of put too much into the professional bucket, in my opinion. So what
Yeah.
we do is look at our lives holistically and hey, like what lights you up? What are the things that where you're strong, where you're really good at what you do? And
Mhm.
so for me, it's been coaching as a means to an end. It's not really about coaching per se. That's not my calling. It's really about my passion, my ability, my superpowers to help someone else reach their full potential, which I do in many different ways. Coaching is probably the primary way, but it's not the only way because I like to do that with my friends. I like to do it with family. I like to do it with my daughter. But it was like the big light bulb came up and it was a course. It was like a 6-month course that sort of woke me up and it really changed how I looked at myself. But you are right when you said I had to do some hard work first before I rushed out into the world and professed myself to be this new thing.
So I'm dying to get the tea. So what did you uncover about yourself that you didn't know then, that you didn't realize, or you just try to suppress, but now that you want to become a coach and you are about to teach people go through the fire, what
Yeah.
did you have to go through first?
Yeah. So I, I, I don't know if I've mentioned this already, but we have essential selves and our social self. So
Mm-hmm.
our essential self is this, unless you've gone through a really, really tough childhood, and people do, I acknowledge that. Your essential self is often when you're a kid, like you're just like playing. You're free of the world's constructs,
Mm-hmm.
you're just your, and I see this in my own child because she's just her really, you know, uh, just bold self. And
Yes.
I want that, I want it that. And I was like that too. I was like, I wasn't I was a helper, but I was really strong willed, very focused, like I was but the big thing was very empathetic. I was
Mm-hmm.
very an empathetic child that had big feelings and high emotion. And when someone else was sad, I would be sad with them and that kind of thing. And so, as a young girl, and this is true for many girls, we sort of molded into what many in society want us to be is sort of good girls, pleasing, helpful, all these different things. But not too emotional,
Yes.
not too emotional. And society in general, we do this to men all the time. Like
Mhm.
emotional men, we just like
No,
not
you're weak.
yeah, exactly. And yet, of course, I mean, I don't know, of course, but for me, a man who's emotional and really understands his emotions, that's very, very appealing, right? That's like someone who
That's a
really knows.
green flag.
Yeah, it's a green, yes, it's a green flag. Yeah, it doesn't mean you have to run around crying. I'm talking about
Yes.
like, yeah, I'm talking about like you like are in tune with yourself. And so I think as a child I was in tune, but I grew up in the 70s, and I think that I might have gotten a lot of signals that being very emotional was a little bit over the top.
Mhm.
And so I worked really hard, and then I ended up, going through college and law school, and, just over time, it just becomes really like you almost get tamped down. It's like, oh, be professional. Oh, be this. Oh, be that. And so when you said the word suppressed, that was like ding, 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 ding for me because I had totally suppressed my
Mhm.
emotion. I ended up having mentors who were extremely effective in the workplace, and I mimicked, I pretended to be like them. I was like, oh, they were so effective. And they would walk in a room, be like, chop, 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 they would take control of the room. And so I did that stuff, and I saw it was effective, quote unquote. But I really put away this emotional part of myself because I thought it was bad. I thought
Mhm.
that part of me was a bad part of me that was ineffective. And I remember when I was in the program and they want you to tap into, like with the coaching program, they want you to tap into your intuition and really connect to yourself, like connect to that part of you that is listening with your heart, not with your head, and like really hearing what someone else has to say, showing up for them in the most empathetic way. And suddenly, none of my lawyering was required. Like that wasn't important. I had to like suddenly tap into this part of myself I had totally suppressed. I was like, this is a bad part of you. And of course, initially that was really difficult. And I remember certain exercises that we were asked to go through. And I was like, I don't know how to do this. Like, this is really difficult. But over time, I was able to like re-tap into this part of me that, it's frankly my strongest part, my empathetic, my intuitive self that's really connected. I love to connect to the universe. I have a lot of woo in me. And then suddenly I'm like this amazing coach. And I'm like, what happened? And so then the crazy part is I'm doing this coaching while I'm still working for a downtown Washington, D.C. international organization with 1,000 people. And suddenly I'm like, wait, I can't show up to work anymore as I used to. Like I have to and that was the hard part. With my coaching people, it was easy. They didn't know who I was from Adam.
Hi, I'm Nick Nieras, your host of the Your Worthless podcast. Now, if these real raw stories hit home, Don't wait, please follow, like, and subscribe my Spotify and YouTube. For bite-sized inspirational reels, follow me on Instagram, TikTok, and LinkedIn. Don't wait, your transformation starts today. Thank you, and bye for now.
I could just be myself, but when I realized I have to align myself with this person who I know I really am, I have to do that. So I just started to show up to work, and I use the word, who is my authentic self? Yeah. And
Okay.
I just decided, okay, I'm going to just show up to work and I'm going to be my authentic self. And I'm going to talk to my staff that way. And what happened was suddenly work got easier. So for those who were listening, yeah, that was
Work
interesting.
got easy. Yeah.
Work got easier because I was just kind of being a little, I was like being a little robot at work, kind of meeting the needs of work. But I had like stepped out of this essential self, this authentic self. And in fact, when I coach leaders now, so I coach the very leaders who are in these same organizations. These are nonprofit, this is academia, this is government, this is the corporate sector. And these are often, not always, but often women who feel like imposters in their businesses. And when we talk about, well, what would it look like to bring your authentic self to work? And they, experiment with it. Suddenly it's like, this is who I am. But the essential self is who we are. It's usually the child within us. It's usually the basic, like, sort of what makes us who we are, what makes us energized, what makes us aligned, what really sort of what makes us who our superpowers. So, but our social self is sort of society. It's what our parents expected. It's what our schools expected, maybe what our church expects, what our businesses. And then we sort of try to mold into the social self, and we show up in a certain way to meet and sometimes the social self and the essential self are at odds. And we have the essential self at home and the social self at work, whatever. I'm not saying the social self is bad, but I will say that if you are totally your social self, then you're likely not feeling aligned with who you are, and you might be less happy just in general. So what you want to do is think about who is that essential self. And one of the biggest tips of figuring out your social self is your essential self, is your superpowers. Like, what makes you special, what makes you unique. And so that was for me, my superpower was being highly empathetic and helping others. And I had been suppressing that. And when I let her out a little bit at work, and then eventually she's now completely out because she's now running the business, I feel aligned. I don't feel like I'm pretending to be something I'm not. And honestly, I don't think I could have even put this into words at that time. At that time, I thought I was, here's who I am at work. So it takes a process. It takes time and energy to get to know yourself a little bit. And it's not that you need to change who you are. It's probably right there within you, but it takes a little bit of digging to get there.
And how long did it take for you to really align yourself with the essential self?
Well, I would like to say it's just a constant process, because now it's been 10 years since I began. I would say that I began the process of like exploring in 2003. And
that's a long time.
Yeah, a long time. And then I am still on the journey, but I'm like, when did I sort of finally, from 2003 is when I began the exploration. That's when I sort of hit a rock bottom, to be perfectly honest. Like 2003, my daughter was 3 years old. I was working really hard. And that's when I discovered meditation. So meditation sort of pulled me into a better space. So I start with meditation. And for anyone who's listening, I highly recommend it. And even for those who are like, oh, I don't do that, because I know those people.
Yeah, they are.
I'm really sorry. I don't buy it. I just don't. I don't buy it that you can't do it. It's not that I think you should sit down for 30 minutes and meditate, but the resources out there to help people meditate are so voluminous now. It's not about sitting quietly and then your brain's kind of going crazy. Like the guided meditations out there, even for 3 minutes. If you can't handle that, that's a little difficult for me to hear. So I really, really think the reason is because our brains are sort of getting in the way of our journey. So we have to be able to clear our brains just a little bit in order to allow the journey. So for me, meditation was a game changer because I was able to like get out of my head just a little bit and get into my body. And I didn't need to think it through. I need to feel my way through. So that's where it began. But I didn't start the this coaching program for a couple of years. So it's still, I'm still on the journey, still looking. And then it was a couple of years after that, after I sort of decided, oh, I think I'm a coach. I needed to build my coaching practice as a side hustle to my job. And so I was full-time working Washington, D.C., commuting every day downtown, a couple blocks from the White House, on
Wow.
Hill, constantly lobbying, trying to change the laws. Very, very intensive role. And I was coaching in the morning, in the evenings, and the weekends. And then I built my practice up to a certain point where I finally realized, oh, I could actually leave this job, and that's what I did in 2018. So anyway, I'm sorry, the dates are more 2013, 2015, 2018. So I would say it was about a full 5 years from wake up to unplugging from my day job. And then the journey continues because every day, every year, I'm like readjusting, but I know I'm on the right path. I'm on the journey, and it never ends and never should end.
Exactly. And just for those listening right now, I just want to point back to the part where you said meditation is not for me. You know, the fact that you're actually attracted to this episode means, and you probably would have heard meditation from other episodes, not only this podcast, but from other podcasts, right? It's actually a sign from the universe. Now, I don't think anything is a coincidence. I am a big believer of that. And so when you said that the time for you to uproot anything that were not you to begin with, it's a never ending process. But the key to it is that we're aware first. And then now we're peeling up the layers as, as the day goes by. And the people that we meet are actually mirrors, or they're reflectors to whatever it is that we're trying to suppress. So I would word it in the sense that, sometimes when we're on that journey, right? It's a trigger. There are triggers when we meet certain people that we don't like. There are triggers. There's actually a signal for you to address or solve that issue within you. And so for me, it was kind of similar. So 5 years ago, I think, 2019, I had my divorce. And so that was the start of everything. I started questioning my worth, because why is it that I've devoted myself to the person that I wanted to marry, and I did marry, but then things didn't work out. And so who am I? So I had to unlearn all of those things about tying. So that's number one. Because I also was an overachiever in a very bad way. I think overachieve, it's you can phrase it as in a good way, because you're reaching your highest potential, right? You're trying to reach your highest potential. But in my case, it was bad because I was always trying to prove my worth through accolades. And that kind of bit me in the, excuse my language, ass. After I tried to pivot from the divorce, I didn't want to process it. So I said, okay, love is not for me. Let me just focus solely on the work or on career, because that's what I'm really good at. But then COVID also happened. And so I had no choice but to sit with the feelings that I had suppressed with the divorce and the choices that I've made up until that point. So that began my whole unraveling about who am I, and do I really want to stay on the course, like being in corporate world? Now, I tried staying, but then the universe always has its own ways, right? The company had to restructure, and then they laid me off. And so I had no choice. I said, Nick, you had two choices. Either you try and find a new job, 9 to 5, or just, you're already half your toes are in. So why don't you just go do it? Because this is actually what I love doing. Like you said, friends come to me for advice and I give it freely. We could talk on the phone for like 2 hours.
Yes.
And after that, I said, is there a way for me to actually do this and try and make a living out of it? Now, and I'm not saying it is easy because still it's a business. So transitioning from a 9 to 5 to a business, it's not an easy feat. And for me, I had to do a lot of adjusting. So still am, but where I'm at the moment, I think it's been a year now since I have completely left the 9 to 5, and it's been still building. I would say I'm still building my practice, still talking. Now podcasting came because I wanted to see if there are others around the world who's actually in a similar journey as I am. And I thought I was gonna go insane, because when you're going through that, we call it quote unquote dark night of the soul, it is scary because you're facing those very parts of yourself that you do not want to face. But once you're through it, but there's not just one dark night of the soul there, but then you become more accustomed, you become more I would say proficient in handling those moments when you fall into the pit. It's probably gonna get easier for you to climb out of the pit again. And next time I don't go through this, I probably would have jumped or, learn, take the other measures. So the people listening to this podcast right now, Danielle, if they said, okay, what Nicole is saying is making sense, and also Danielle, so what do I need to do now? I am trying to make the switch, or I'm trying to learn. So, say somebody wants to bake, but I don't know if baking could actually pay the bills.
Right.
How would you help them?
Yes. Yes. That's so good. My gosh, everything, so much you said there was amazing. Like, yeah, then you like asked me this question. Can I say something about something you said first before I answer that question? It,
Yes.
this thing of identity is so important. Like
Mm.
what you said about your identity is so, so important because we are created in this, world, and then we become these identity. We build, and I'm watching my tween right now, like build this like identity. And I can see she's trying things on for size, and she's like getting all sorts of opinions, like I think that's wrong, and I think this is unjust. And I just see all this stuff happening. And I think, oh my gosh, that's what I went through. Of course, everybody goes through their like identity and they create it and they practice and then they grow up and then suddenly we have this identity. And sometimes our identity is in your case, you were like, this is true for me too. Like you get an identity through a marriage and you get an
Mm.
identity through a job or a career.
Yes.
You get an identity through maybe a degree. You get identity through being part of a community, whether it's like a religious community or just a community of people. And suddenly you have these layers on you, and they're into you. They're inside. They're part of you. And then it's sort of this, when something happens, in your case, divorce, but I'm coaching a lot of people who have lost their roles in the federal government, and their
Yeah.
entire identity has been
Right.
wrapped up in, right,
Exactly.
their career. So, when someone is at that stage of like thinking about doing something different, as much as I would love to say, oh yeah, just follow your dreams and your passions and everything's going to unfold for you, the reality is that you may be able to do that, but at some point, at the beginning of that process, in the middle or the end, I don't know when it's going to happen, you run into this identity issue because you've always done something a certain way. So in my case,
Mm. Mm.
priorities too, when I became a coach, like when I decided, oh my gosh, this is amazing, I'm going to be a coach. Well, guess what? It wasn't a like straightforward, non-rocky road at all. The light bulb went off. I was like, oh my gosh, this is my calling. This is what I'm good at. This is where I know I can make a powerful change in the world. And I had 0 clients. And I was making, a good amount of money. already. So like there's a
And like,
big
why? What? Logically, it doesn't make sense. Why would you switch? Right? Why?
what is
Why?
going on?
Yes.
Yeah, crazy. And so I was like, and but this little inner voice was calling. And then I ration I had a rationale. Okay, well, I'll just start a side business and I'll just make extra money for the family. So this is not really leaving my job. But of course, at some point I was like killing myself trying to do the side hustle. And I wasn't happy in my job. And so there was the, moment of truth where I was like, I really want to leave this job. I want to go. But that I had not made anywhere near enough money. I just had to do something. It was a big decision. And then also I had to like tell people that I was a coach and not a
Lawyer anymore.
can you imagine? Like, even to this day, I think people are like, what is she doing? She's
Oh my God, Danielle, I faced the issue. I mean, you're what, 10 years in, and I'm 1 year in, and they're like, Nick, weren't you?
what's
I mean,
happened
you were,
here?
yeah, you were an accountant, but why? Why? How
Right,
do you make money? And then
Yeah.
none of my friends are like, they're, I love them, but then they're like, they're flabbergasted. Like, okay, so you podcast, how do you make money from podcasting? And then
This
you
is all
go,
my
yeah,
How do you make money? What's the thinking here?
exactly,
When
exactly.
for until very recently, I would not post on LinkedIn. Like I
Okay.
was like, I'm not going to do LinkedIn. I'll do Facebook, but I won't do LinkedIn because I don't want anyway. I I will say it took me years to shed. I'm an environmental lawyer and policy person. I mean, I still do a little bit of that because it brings in a little bit extra cash for me. Most of my money is now from the coaching and I coach and consult, but it's all in the coaching space. So now I'm higher. It's taken me 10 years, but I've done it. And I could shed my environmental consulting work, but I don't want to because I kind of enjoy doing a little bit of that. So essentially, I'm making more than I made, but it took me a lot of years. It wasn't about the work. I mean, you've got to just keep at it, be consistent, do the things you're doing. But it was the mindset stuff that was the hardest because I had to show up and I had to write people messages and say, hey, I'm a coach. Do you think you might need any services? And to write those messages, to post, to get out in the world was extremely scary because it was the identity issue. And I'll be the first one to say when you're going through a process of saying, maybe I'll do something different, that identity issue will come up not because your identity is better now, it's because it's just who you are. It's how everybody knows you. It's your social self. And so taking that time, it's not about making everything nice and comfortable. It's not going to be comfortable, but it is about getting out and noticing, okay, this is really uncomfortable for me. I have to write this email. I have to do this post. I have to, whatever it is. So that my advice for people who are thinking about change or whatever is, work on your mindset, obviously, like, coach yourself, but surround yourself with people who are in the space you're wanting to go into. Don't surround yourself with the people. I mean, if they're not going to be supportive of you, then I would say, consider whether they're really people you really want. I mean, sometimes you have to because they're family or maybe, but I've had people who I'm like, I'm not going to hang out with this person. This person is all they want to talk to me about is my old self.
Yeah.
And so you kind of surround yourself with those people, and then suddenly you're part of their group. And what happens is it brings you energy because we want to inspire ourselves about our new pathway, even if it's not for making money. That question, like, how do you make money, is, I think, we're always driven by. Of course we are. We have to pay our bills. But
Roof over our head.
coming to your question about what about the person who wants to cook?
Yes.
Yeah, sure. By all means, I want that person to imagine themselves, with a business that is making six figures and they are cooking all the time. But when our brain goes to, how can I make this into a business? We have
Oh my
lost.
God. Oh my God. Yes, yes, yes.
It's just, when I started coaching, and I'm embarrassed to say this now, but I'll just say it now. I charge $20 an hour for my coaching services. That is not how much I charge now. Like not even but I remember like going, okay.
Why would people want me coaching them? Right? I'm
Yeah, I
sure
was
that
like,
those are like the
I will
questions.
do it for free, but we were required in our program for certification to get paid. So I charged $20 an hour for way too long, but I built a whole business on it. So eventually I was able to like move my prices up, without any problem. But I was, had a money mindset issue and all that kind of thing. But, really, if I spent all my time trying to figure out how to make it into a business that could fully pay my bills, I would have given up. Most coaches give up, and most coaches here. So, and I know most small businesses fail. It's just, probably just a statistic that is just true. It's really, really hard to be an entrepreneur, to get out in the world. And the only thing I say to people is it's really about consistency over time, and then building, continue, like making sure your rates are, all, what they should be, making sure that you're thinking about, all the good business practices. But for me, it took me 10 years, and not even 10, I mean, probably 7 years to get to a place, but I had to work my hardest. And all the people that I was surrounded by in the coaching program, I think they left and they went back to their old lives. And I don't
No
judge.
way. Really?
Yeah, I just think I think a lot of coaches have trouble. I know it's a hard business to get in. It's a hard business to build, but for those who have a passion, and consistency and tenacity,
Mm-hmm.
you can build anything. I think you can build just about
Exactly.
anything. But it isn't about trying to. So for the person who's like, I'm excited about cooking, or insert your passionate thing right into there, I'd say just do the thing and just get started and play and treat it in that space of where it lifts you up. If you're spending all your time trying to figure out how to make this into a business and how to add it up,
Yes.
you're in this really negative space. And so for me,
Mm-hmm.
it always been, how am I going to make enough money so I can just keep this thing going? And so I've brought in other monies from other sources, and then the coaching has become more and more and more the thing that it becomes the main thing. But it wasn't that
Mm-hmm.
initially. And I did it day after day after day, month after month, year after year, because it lifted me up. So I was driven by my energy, not by the money.
Oh, I love that. Because money is energy. If you step into the space where okay, if it's easy, everybody would be doing it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And because it's not easy, but the universe requires you to show up. And if you want to, there will be ways for you to get there. And you just, I don't know who quote. Yeah, there's a quote in my head right now, but I don't remember who quoted it. It says, I think it was Usain Bolt. Was it Usain Bolt? It took 10,000 hours to become a master at something, to run at, that fast for like around 53 seconds. And so this is the same for everything. You want to become a master in speaking. You have a keynote speaker, a coach, a football player. You have to put in the work. Now, people, I think what stops them is, okay, number one, money, but also the perception, the identity that other people have upon themselves. And so it starts from here. You have to be super, I would say, you have to sit with yourself and really ground yourself, and ground yourself, and have a chat with the inner child you, and the future self, the future you, I mean your highest self, right? And if it's really, because they're actually, this one person quoted as well, they're sovereign. You hold your hands, hold their hands and say, okay, I'm in this space. Am I'm swayed at the moment because maybe this month my clients are just one, or I don't have any, and I have, say, something big coming up. But somehow, I think for my case, things would always work out, even though it's not the way that I hoped it to be. Maybe I planned for something, but somehow things will come up, and then it will get settled either way. Or it gets, say, for example, a payment, or you have to, I got the leniency to break it down to several payments. And so what I'm trying to say here is that if you really align your mind, heart, and soul, the universe is always responding, and there are always clues everywhere. It's in the music, it's in the conversation. Perhaps this podcast is the very thing that you need. So and coming back to the whole premise of this podcast is, get a life coach who's actually lived or walked the same path as you walk, or where you wanna you want to get to.
Yes.
Yeah, because surrounding yourself with a great support system is, it's going to be your rock. And but by all means, it's the most important thing, that the person that you live the longest with is yourself, not your partner, not your kids, not your parents, or you know family members or your coworkers. So being being super clear, and that means, meditation. There's so many modalities out there, and just be compassionate. I would say, if you're transitioning, just be compassionate on yourself. Hug that little self of yours.
I know.
So yeah.
So wise. You're clearly really strong at what you do, and all that is
Oh,
exactly
Danielle,
right.
that means the world to me. Thank you so much. Because I've spent because it can be lonely. Being a coach is a lonely journey, and especially people around you. And you've seen, and you said it just a couple of minutes ago. People say 10 of you joined the arena, and then eight dropped out. And okay, should I be dropping out too, or what should I do? How can I fortify this, or I should I cut my losses now?
Right. I think that,
Right?
and that's,
Yeah.
yeah, that's where surrounding yourself with people who are steps ahead of you. So someone who you support should be, you're ahead of them and you're going to be their best coach. And then you surround yourself with people who are steps ahead of you and you're inspired by them. Like that's the thing.
It's the energy, what
Yeah.
you give, you get back.
You give back, exactly. And sometimes you have to work hard to find that community or
Yes.
those people, but I think it's worth it. Sometimes you get it from a podcast. Like I'm listening to a podcast right now and I'm like, I'm inspired. I don't even know this
Ex-
guy. Whatever.
exactly.
He's inspiring me. So
Yes.
yeah, I think that we have to become inspired, because if you go into the space of what if and maybe I can and maybe I should get back, yeah, of course it's not gonna work out. Like this is the entrepreneurial space we want to be in, which is building trust that it
Hmm.
will work out. And because if it's all about fear, that's where you're gonna tank your own business. And I'm not saying that I have fear all the time, always fear,
Yeah. But we do it anyway.
but I choose to go to what inspires me and what grows me. And when I get into that mindset, and meditation helps me, then I can manage the fear, because my real passion is not to fail. Of course, my passion
Yes.
is to succeed in this dream. And I know that the only way for me to get there is to align myself with what the universe is going to give to me. So I really think that your approach makes a lot of sense, and we need to do it for ourselves as coaches, and we need to be able to get so that we can get back to our clients.
Thank you, Danielle. Wow. Okay. 49 minutes now.
Yeah.
49 minutes. And okay, Danielle, what are you working on currently?
What am I working on? Well, right now I am working on, it's such a good question, because I'm like, ooh, I have so many different little things. The biggest thing that I'm lit up by these days is my women's leadership group. So I have a new group of women, and I feel it's very powerful to bring people together. And I used to be very sort of one-to-one, and I still do one-to-one, but I have a group program, two group programs, one's for women leaders and one's for the career changers. And so yeah,
Mm.
and I have been delighted by what happens when you bring people together in a room. So that's been
Ooh,
my.
this is me learning from you, because obviously you're here for like what, 10 years already in this space. So what is the difference between one-to-one and group? Because right now I'm doing one-to-one, but of course one-on-one, you need a lot of nurturing, but group, at least people are not so afraid to share, because they say, oh, I have this story, and oh, you're so similar as mine. So
Yeah.
what would be I mean, a balance, and what's the difference first and then the balance?
Well, for both of my programs, everybody gets one-to-one plus the group. So it's,
Oh, nice. So it's like
yeah,
a bonus. Okay.
it's right. And so people come to me and they're like, well, I just want a coach, because a lot of people just want to talk one-to-one,
Yeah.
and that's understandable. But and they don't even realize until they're in the group what the power of the group is. But I would say that So I'm a Gen X, and everyone younger than me wants group. Like they want that community.
Really?
Yeah.
Really? I
Yeah. Like
haven't conducted a survey yet. Perhaps I should.
yeah, it's a good thing. Well, and sometimes you have to invite them to try it out and see, but I will say this, number one, crucial to have the right people in the group, because you can actually end up with someone who has a really negative energy, and then that sort of infects the group. So you don't want that. And it's hard because everybody needs help, but
Yeah.
some people's energy, it can really be a challenge. So you really want to be thoughtful about that. But in general, if you can have a good gate, if you will, for the group work, I have literally done a group program where I'm like, start the program for an hour. I ask 2 or 3 questions, and then they go to town. They're just like all talking, and you can tell
You mean you give them questions and then
and
all,
they're
let's say
coaching
5 of them.
themselves and helping each other and supporting one another.
Wow.
And it's sort of like, wow. I mean, if they weren't, I would interject, but the power of the group has surprised me more than I thought. And, it's another way to build your business because people want that. So it's a program. It's like, so then from a business standpoint, it's very helpful. But for the clients, like they get to connect with other people, but they also get to connect with me individually. And it's actually been a way for me to monetize another income stream.
I think this is a sign from the universe. Nick, you have to start thinking about setting up a group.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. And we're so comfortable now with online and virtual that like it's not, it's really COVID has brought a few gifts, not many. But
Yeah.
people are really happy to get on Zoom. In the past, they were when I started
Dreading
coaching,
it. Yeah.
everything had to be in person. I had to go meet people. Now nobody wants to meet anymore. And I don't even have clients in Salt Lake City, Utah. If you're really listening
No.
from Salt Lake City, Utah, reach out because I'd love to. But yeah, so I think it's really powerful and it's easy. It's really easy to do. So think about it. And for those who are listening, like there is real power in group. This idea of gathering people together and doing something, whether it's cooking or crafting or whatever it is, right? It's like people want community now more than ever. And we need facilitators.
I'm going to go and brainstorm about that after this.
Do it. Do it. I love it.
Okay, I've got some ideas and I've got some people in mind right now. Okay.
Good.
All
Do
right.
it right after we talk. This is exactly
Yes.
right.
Yes. Okay, Danielle. So, okay, we're gonna pivot to a self-worth question.
Okay.
So after our conversation, I feel the question for you is, how have your definition of self-worth evolved now that you're here? You're where you're at right now.
Oh, what a good question. Oh my gosh. Yeah, my self-worth has like taken a like I'm thinking about it like a going around the going around the moon, just my self-worth was 100% tied up in societies like when you go to LinkedIn, that's what I was wrapped up in. Did you get recognized? Did you get a title? Did you get,
Positive feedback for
yeah,
your evaluation.
yeah. Did you get that? Great. Did you get like even money? Like I like money. Let me just tell you, I love money.
Yeah, I love
Money's
money
good.
too. Yeah, money's good.
Money's good. I deserve money. I am attracting money.
Yes,
Money is coming my way. But I'm not
exactly.
defining myself in the same way. It's money for my life. So my worth is so not wrapped up in that. And I see people, it is their identity, everything is wrapped up in that societal thing. And I get it because I grew up in Washington, D.C., where that is pretty much what mattered. Now my worth is built around relationships and people and meaning and my garden, which I'm just looking at outside, my daughter, um, my spirituality. And honestly, let me just say, just to end this, my father died last year and it was very
I'm so
painful for us to
sorry.
lose him. Yeah, thank you so much. And he was a very accomplished man. He rose to some of the highest levels of the US government and did amazing things for our country. But what really mattered at the end of his life, because I was with him and we were all together, it was not those things. That is not what mattered. What mattered was his friends, his family, the impact he left, the people he changed, the love he brought everybody. It was like not about those. And so it's like, if you just want to even take that moment to think, what is the legacy I want to leave in this world? In terms of it's not going to be a title. It's not going to be an award. That man he had millions of awards. We still have his awards. We're still trying to figure out how to deal with his awards because we don't want to throw them away. That is not what was important to him in the last days and months of his life. It was about the legacy he left as a human being. And this is what we've lost as a people. We just have lost it. We have got to get back to this. Who are we as people? Who are we in our terms, our character and meaning and impact? And that's why what you did, Nicolette, is beautiful. You found your passion, your truth, and you are pursuing it. And you will be so grateful, and your family will be grateful for that change that you made, because it's not going to matter whether you were an accountant or not at that time. And so I think we all have to grapple with this, whether or not you stay in your profession, because what really matters are the stuff of character and the stuff of life.
Thank you, Danielle. I needed that. Thank you. That was beautiful. Okay, so Danielle, how can people reach out to you?
So I'm on LinkedIn. Speaking of LinkedIn, I'm on LinkedIn. You can find me there. An easiest way to connect with me that is there. I have a website, Time for Wellbeing, but it's the number 4, timeforwellbeing.com. I have lots of free resources for those who are navigating change.
Awesome. So any last message before we wrap this episode? No, I think you've imparted everything. For that, thank you, Danielle. And for our listeners, that is a wrap on today's inspiring episode with Danielle Droitsch. Thank you, Danielle, for the work that you do and for continuing to uplift the world and others with your work. So for our listeners, this has been your worthless. Read that again, the juxtaposition of your very soul. If you've ever felt worthless, remember you are not alone. Your soul chose to be here to matter. And for that reason alone, you are worthy. A huge thank you to you again, Danielle, and to all of you for listening. Until next time, I am Nick Nieras. Keep shining, keep growing, and always remember, you are worthy and you are enough. See you in the next episode. Thank you, Danielle, for your time.
Thank you so much.
Love this episode? Now, transformation doesn't end here. Head on to @holistic.lifestyle_with_Nick. That is on my Instagram. Or head on to my website, www.daniellerasholisticlifestyle.com for more info on my coaching framework, which is the worthy, authentic, and abundant framework, digital guides, and my upcoming events such as retreats and master classes and workshops. Now, I also do intuitive readings where we get to check on your soul path. And if you're also wanting to check on your energetic alignment, I have done that too. And I offer that kind of services. So, my question to you is, are you ready? Because I am. Let's create the together.
Hi, Danielle. Good morning to you. How are you doing today?
Oh, I'm great. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, thank you so much for saying yes to be interviewed today. I'd like to introduce myself to you formally and to all of our listeners tuning in for the first time or my returning subscribers. Hello, this is Nicolette. I am the creator for the podcast titled You're Worthless. Read that again, the juxtaposition of your very soul. Now, today we're going to talk about figuring out what it means to do the work that you love. But first, we are going to introduce Danielle to the world, and then we can get right into our conversation. So, hello everyone. We have Danielle Droitsch here with us. Danielle is an executive and leadership coach, empowering high-achieving professionals, especially mission-driven ones, to discover their superpowers, love their work, lead confidently, and achieve well-being. Now, in 2015, she experienced burnout herself despite having a dream job. Now, she sought to discover if she still could create a positive impact to the world while having a life and career that she loves. So I think she did just that, and she's doing it right now. So we're gonna dive into that. Welcome to the show, Danielle. Thank you so much. Okay, Danielle, I'd like to take the listeners and the guests trip down memory lane. Could you first share with us what was it like growing up as a Danielle Droitsch?